Well, a really big welcome to you all today from wherever you're logging on around Australia, but also uh, we have a lot of overseas guests with us today, which is really nice as well. Welcome to our Coaching Cafe webinar for today, and it's Natalie Ashdown with you as always, here from Open Door Coaching. And today I'm quite excited to talk to you about what big changes we'll see and what big changes might impact the professionalism of the coaching industry. So I've got some things to share with you that are happening at the International Coach Federation level, and you can feel free to ask questions about the changes that are coming, and I'm really excited to actually share a lot of these things with you. So welcome everyone. Before I begin, let me just acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians on the lands on which we're all meeting today, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and communities of Australia. And we pay our respects to them and to elders past, present and emerging. And let me extend my welcome out to anyone, wherever you might be listening to this webinar, or perhaps you're listening to the podcast, just extending a welcome to you if you are from an Indigenous community around the world, because we do have a lot of people that log on from around the world. So our agenda for today is quite action-packed actually, but I really want to take some time. We've only got half an hour together, as you know, but I want to take some time to answer any questions you might have as well. So please feel free to hit up the chat box as always. I want to give you some information about the background to the changes that are coming to the ICF core competencies, highlight those major changes, what it means for us as coaches, and if you are planning to put in place a credential application, what it actually means to you. I want to tell you about the timeline for the changes, and the big change that's coming down the line is the changes to credential pathways as well. So I want to really make it clear how that impacts ourselves as alumni, Open Door coaches. And the good news is we are really well positioned for these changes. So you can pretty well relax. But the other question I want to ask you, and we can explore today in the short time we have available, is what do these changes actually mean to the professionalism of the coaching industry, in particular, the coaching that we do around workplace coaching? And I hope you can feel my excitement coming down the line, because I am very excited about these changes. If you are here and you're new to the Coaching Cafe, welcome. We are all about sharing a community of thought-provoking thoughts, sharing our learned experiences, having thought-provoking conversations. And the way you can interact is by popping messages into the chat box, and I can pick those up. If you are a regular, welcome back. You know, we love Fridays, and I love coming here and spending this time with you. So it's always a pleasure to come and log on with you. So feel free to hit up the chat box anytime you like, if you've got questions or comments to make as we go along. If you are also collecting your ICF CCEUs, of course, we offer them available free to charge, giving back to the industry. And I will put up the CCU and you can screenshot it at the end of the presentation. So here we go. Let's talk about the core competencies and the background to the changes. Now, some of you might remember I did a precursor webinar to this actually a couple of years ago, to flag that these changes were coming. And so the changes to the ICF core competencies were actually announced back in November 2019. And it has been the first major update in 20 years of the ICF core competencies. So for coaches who have been around for a while, this is a very exciting update. It's never been updated in my time, basically. It's the first major change I've ever seen. It was based on 2 years of research that the ICF did. They put together a subject matter expert group who looked very carefully at the ICF core competencies. That subject matter expert group was made up of a number of MCC coaches and different people around the globe. And they also interviewed 1,300 coaches as well. I was involved at the time in those interviews, and I remember completing the survey. The changes to the ICF core competencies are data-driven. Now, this is the most exciting thing, I think. For those of you that really believe in research and that the work we do is research-driven, it's data-driven, I know there's a couple of people on the line, they're doing doctorates and PhDs. You're going to be excited about this, as I am, in that the changes were actually data-driven and evidence-based. What that meant is that if things didn't change in the ICF core competencies unless there was an evidence and a data point that meant that it was an important change to make. Elsa, you say the connection's bad on your end. Let me just double check that my AirPods are picking up here. It looks like, okay, thanks, Kirsten. Yeah, I'll carry on. I think it might be just you because, yeah. Everyone else is saying the connection's good. Thanks, Michelle. Good on you. So, yeah, so the evidence and data-driven nature of these changes is really significant and really important. So they were thinking about the ICF core competencies, thinking about what changes do they need to make it more relevant to the coaching that's happening today, and make it relevant to the global coaching outlook as well, which is a really significant change when you think about it. So some of you may think that the ICF core competencies in their previous form, you know, they weren't really written. I mean, they're written for the workplace coaching that we do, but they're more written now, and hopefully they sound more familiar to you. And that's the global nature of the changes they're making. It was based on a clear research methodology as well, which is really pleasing, of course. Don't forget, like the ICF, the International Coach Federation is a global organisation. So when I say, oh, it's based on research, well, you'd kind of expect that, wouldn't you? But, you know, it's worth pointing out, I think. Now, what was interesting is they did a job analysis of an effective coach, and they used that job analysis of the effective coach to make the changes. So in our background, when we're thinking about the ICF core competencies, think about what makes an effective coach, and all of a sudden things should sound really good to you. So why do we actually care about this? Well, the changes to the ICF core competencies was about the maintenance of a global professional standard. So, you know, everyone on the line, everyone that's listening to this, you know that we're passionate. We as an alumni are passionate about the professional standards of coaching. I'm also passionate that this is a global standard, a global professional standard that we're actually meeting. So when an organisation puts such a significant investment into the maintenance of that global professional standard, all the professionals, i.e. everyone on the line, like you and me, we all go, well done. The other thing that's important here is that the ICF core competencies now reflect, I think, current practice. It's really important for us as executive coaches, workplace coaches, internal coaches to our organisation, that the global standard that we sign up to as professionals actually reflects our current practice. And it should feel like that to you when I explain some of these changes. For those of you that are members of the International Coach Federation, you will have just renewed your membership over the last month or so. And, you know, all the time people ask me, oh, why do I have to renew my membership? What do I get for my membership? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what you get for your membership is membership of a professional global organisation. It means that you can put the ICF logos on your signature block, and it means something in the industry. And then people go, oh yeah, but clients have never asked me for my credential. Well, they might not ask you for it, but I can pretty well guarantee they're looking it up beforehand. Or if they don't look it up in your bios beforehand, they're expecting it. So any professional, you'd expect them to be part of the membership or the professional organisation. So all of those reasons are really important, I think. So the other reason why we might care about this, some of you might care about it, is that there's a new credentialing assessment coming. It is based on the new ICF core competencies. So if you're thinking of credentialing after mid-2022, so in the next few months, things are going to start to roll out. If you're thinking of applying to the International Coach Federation for your credential after, I'd say, June 30, then you want to be thinking about how you are meeting the ICF core competencies. So that's really important. So for those of you that might actually be looking at your ICF exam, what you do need to know is that from the 1st of August 2022, there will be a new ICF credentialing exam. It replaces the coach knowledge assessment. So the reason why you need to know this is because the coach knowledge assessment was 150 questions. The new ICF credentialing exam is, I think, going to be 170 questions. If you're going to apply for your credential and renew your credential, you'll have to do the new credentialing exam. Thank goodness I don't have to do it. I did my knowledge assessment a couple of years ago, I think. So it's just something to be aware of, that the new credentialing exam will be part of the ICF core. It will be based on the new ICF core competencies. So if you're thinking of applying for a credential from the 1st of August 2022, you need to be aware of it. All right, so that's why we care. It's an important change, and the ICF were very. So I've been involved in a lot of the briefings throughout the last couple of years, and the main message that's coming through is this is about evolution, not a revolution. So they didn't throw out the ICF core competencies and start all over again. They evolved the ICF core competencies to make them more like best practice. So that's a really good thing as well. They're not just tossing out the old. And I liked this picture actually of I think there might be agapanthus or something, where it's the same but different and renewed, the flowers renew and that. So it's same but different. It's a renewal of the competencies. All right, so let me highlight to you some of the major changes that you will notice. And these are really super important. First of all, there's a stronger emphasis on ethics. And there's a stronger emphasis on professional development, so that we as coaches are acting in an ethical manner across the board, but also that part of that is that we're continuing our professional development as well. There's a very strong emphasis on coaching mindset. In fact, it's become one of the core competencies. And the big distinction here, it's about who we are being as coaches rather than just the doing of coaching. So you will know that. Everyone on the line knows that at some point, most of us went through that change, to develop that coaching mindset about who we're being as coaches. So it's really, I think, quite wonderful that's built into the ICF core competencies now. And across the ACC, so at the ACC level, the coaching is more about doing the coaching, like implementing the coaching tools and working with your client based on the tools. But as you get into the more advanced levels of coaching, which a number of you are, PCC into MCC, it's about how we're being, how we're showing up as coaches. And that's written now specifically into the competencies. And I'm really happy to see that, because it's what happens on our coach training programs, that at some point we update our coaching mindset, and we're always thinking about how do we continue to be coaches in the work that we do. So hopefully that you'll be excited about that. There's also a very strong emphasis on reflective practice and continual development, as I said, and that's built into the core competencies now, that we're not just getting our coaching credentials and thanks very much, That's why we do these coaching cafes, isn't it? So we can continue our professional development. And the very exciting thing is it's much more aligned to workplace coaching now. In fact, the idea about stakeholder engagement, organizational coaching, what we do from a workplace coaching point of view, an executive coaching point of view, it's now built into the ICF core competencies. And this is really exciting, because previously we could see how what we are doing, obviously everything that we're doing is aligned to the core competencies, but to have this more clearly built in, I think is a very big change and very exciting. What you'll notice is that it actually makes it easier for us to align to the core competencies, us meaning workplace coaches, internal coaches, executive coaches, people who are doing coaching within organisations. The other thing that I'm actually happy about is the language is more streamlined. It's gone from like 1,500 words down to 1,200 words or 1,300 words, I think it is. And I find a lot of the language is less jarring. It actually sounds and looks and feels better. Some of the language I found in the core competencies was quite jarring and also quite difficult to understand, like what does that even mean, So to have that sorted out and make it more universal, where don't forget that ICF core competencies, it's now been translated into many different languages. It's a global standard. So it had to be global universal language. And for us, some of that language didn't make sense, but now it does. So that's really, really great. And Andrew, thank you for jumping in. He says, I think we need to also help our coaches to understand they're being defined by being and not just doing. Yes, thank you for saying that, because we get it, don't we? But it's a progression that people go through as they develop their competency and their professionalism. And you say this creates well-being and a better mindset to face the challenges of life. Yes, exactly. So coaching is not something that we just go, oh, I think I might start coaching now. You know, it's how we're showing up in our own self, isn't it? Our own mindsets, that we have growth mindsets, we've got above the line mindsets. So, you know, we hold ourselves accountable, don't we, to keeping above the line and coaching ourselves and things like that. And that is all part of our well-being, our mindset, and, as you say, facing challenges as well. Yeah, thank you. So let me flick through quickly what you're going to notice. 11 competencies down to 8. Let me highlight some of the major changes to you. So the ethical practice and guidelines, it's been split into 2. And look at that. There's actually a whole competency which you can download from the ICF website, by the way. They're also on the portal, on the Open Door portal as well. Embodies the coaching mindset is actually a whole part of the professionalism. It's an actual whole competency now, which is really great to see. When it comes to establishing the coaching agreement, that's moved to number 3, establishes and maintains a coaching agreement. The really important thing here is that stakeholder agreements, acknowledging that the coaching agreement, remember our coaching triangle, the coach, the coachee, the stakeholder, the competencies now acknowledge that the stakeholder is often part of the coaching relationship and part of establishing the agreement. We know that, don't we? But it's built in now, which is very cool. Because of that, it also acknowledges that there's an agreement that might be made at a stakeholder or organisational level. What I also really like is now what's built into the competencies is that the agreements are made every time we contract, every single time we have a coaching conversation. So yes, we've got the overall coaching agreement that we're trying to work towards and achieve, but every time we get together for a coaching conversation, a formal coaching conversation, we are recontracting, we are re-establishing that agreement for, you know, what would you like to achieve today? What would you like to get out of our conversation? How does what we're talking about relate to the higher purpose or the overall agreement? How is what we're going to discuss today going to help you achieve your overall goals? So we're thinking about what it is you'd like to discuss, what would serve you best. You know, all these questions we're asking at the beginning. Think about the extended grow model. So all those questions we do at the beginning, they are linked now to the overall agreement, which is really strong. It's really good. And Ilse, I agree with you. I'm sure you would be happy to see that the ethics are making a greater appearance. Ethics was something that we just went, yes, we're acting ethically, but now it's really quite defined, which is nice to see. And important, isn't it? You know, as professionals, absolutely. So establishing trust and intimacy with the client, thank goodness, has changed to cultivates trust and safety. This is what we're doing. As part of our relationship, we are cultivating trust and safety within that relationship. I'm not sure, you can jump in on the chat if you like. I was never comfortable with establishing trust and intimacy. Yes, the conversation is a private conversation, but that's part of the jarring language that I never really liked. So trust and safety just makes me feel a lot better when I'm trying to explain in the workplace what the standards are that we're meeting. So that those certain words mean different things in different cultures, and that's something I'm happy to see the back of. Coaching presence has gone to maintains presence. You can have a bit of a read of it. It's much the same. For those of you that know me and the journey I've been on from, to achieve my MCC and then beyond, um, what's important here is that for me, this is part of my continuous professional development. How do I continue to establish and maintain that coaching presence? It's one of the things I struggled with, trying to prove, that I was doing and I was being present in my MCC exams. But anyway. Active listening has changed to listen actively. For what it's worth, I wish they would drop that word active, because sometimes I think when we see it in coach training, people are being very active. They're thinking about the next question. They're thinking, maybe they've switched into problem solving. I don't want people to be active in their listening. I just want them to listen. But they have really, along with coaching presence, kind of sharpened that up, which is quite nice. Now, powerful question, direct communication, creating awareness. This has now become evokes awareness, and this is an important change here, because it really, if you have a look at the description here, it does describe what we're doing. As coaches, we're facilitating client insights and learning. So we're facilitating the client insight and learning by using tools and techniques. So it's acknowledging that we actually use tools and techniques in our profession, such as powerful questioning, silence, metaphor, analogy of something. It's acknowledging that we're using tools and techniques. Now, what happens across the different levels is that at the ACC level, those tools and techniques are a bit more obvious. And when you're working with coaches that have been doing it for a while and are, master coaches, they are using, you can hear the tools and techniques in the background, but it's much more subtle. It's much more flowing, if you like. The tools and techniques aren't really at the forefront. So what I like here is that we are, and as you know, with me, I'm still asking the same questions you asked to kick off those coaching conversations. I'm still using the GROW model as the framework. We are still using those tools and techniques, but as at the different levels, they kind of blend into the background a little bit more, which is really nice, a nice way of distinguishing things. And so we evoke awareness as coaches, and we facilitate our client growth. Look at all this: designing actions, planning and goal setting, manage accountability. It's about facilitating the client growth. I love the language here. Feel free to jump into the chat and agree with me or disagree with me. But we create awareness, we facilitate the client growth. The wording here in the ICF core competencies is all about partnering with the client. Partnering, I love it. There's not this subordinate relationship. It's partnering with the client to transform learning. So to transform what they're learning out of the coaching interaction into insights and action. So translate your awareness, translate your learning into insights, into action, and allow the person to be autonomous in the coaching process. So allow them to decide what they're going to do. Now, hopefully you're going, this all sounds very familiar, because guess what? That's actually what we want. That's actually what the International Coach Federation at a global level is trying to achieve. Hopefully, as an Open Door alumni, you feel like we are doing this already. And that's the good news, because guess what? We've already gone through this whole accreditation process. And for a lot of you, these core competencies have already been built into the programs that you did. So we had an opportunity back in 2020 to go through all of our renewals and our reaccreditation. And because these changes were already in place or coming, we built all of this into our existing programs. So the thing for us is nothing for you to do at this point. But so there's nothing for you to worry about, I suppose, because we're all built in already. Most of you, if you've done the program in the last couple of years, this should sound familiar to you because it's been built in. I think what we can do though, and what I have spent a lot of time doing, is we can reflect as coaches. So I encourage you to go back to the ICF core competencies, have a read of them, reflect on what it means to you as coaches. you are part of a global standard. We are meeting a global standard. We're part of this professional industry in all of the roles that we are actually fulfilling. So you can go back and have a reflection and think about, how am I bringing these competencies to life in my day-to-day practice? What areas of the competencies, as they're defined now, what areas of the competencies do we need to focus on as coaches? What area would I need to focus on for my professional development over the forthcoming year? So there's some really nice questions we can ask ourselves as well. Yeah, so the question here around, are those three factors still capability requirements? Yes, so 9, 10 and 11 in the old, on the old scale became 8, and they are still capability requirements. Yeah, they've just been really condensed. Designing actions, planning, goal setting, managing accountability, like there was a lot of stuff in those, and they've just been condensed now. So that's quite a good change. Yeah. Timeline for the changes. Coach training programs had to integrate these changes by last year, January 2021. Open Door did it in January 2020. So it is kind of, it has happened. But the reason why we're bringing it up now is because of the new credentialing assessments start from mid-2022. So it's highlighting to you now that if you are going for a credential from August, June, July, August 2022, you really need to be focusing on your core competencies. Now, you don't have to worry because it's already built in, as I said, but it's a good opportunity to refocus. And that's the timeline there as well. So just to pause for a second, and then the other thing, feel free to jump in if you have any questions. And of course, hit me up separately if you really want to talk about personally about what does this mean to your credential, or the credential you're holding now, or the credential you might hold in the future. We can talk individually about that, no worries. The other big change you're going to see is the change to the ICF accreditation structure and credential paths. Now, this is new and this is huge. They are doing away with actually ACTP, ASTCH, etc., and they're changing to level 1 accreditation, which is a pathway through to ACC, level 2 accreditation as a pathway to PCC, and level 3 accreditation, which is new, which is a pathway to NCC. So this is quite huge for the industry, because previously an organisation could get their program accredited. So Open Door, as you know, we have the ACTP program. So our diploma, which incorporates the Cert 4, gives you the coach training hours to achieve ACTP. And it was all about previously ensuring that the programs were meeting the standards. And as you know, since 2007, or you may not know, for many years now, Open Door has been continuously updating our qualifications and to meet the standards. What's important now is the ICF are introducing 7 new standards that coach training providers now need to meet. To Open Door and to you as the alumni, we go, that is good news, right? So other coach training providers out there now need to meet the 7 new standards. Now, we already meet the standards because we're a registered training organisation. We have to meet our regulatory requirements. And we have to meet our governing body requirements for the delivery of our programs. And of course, we've been meeting the International Coach Federation requirements as well. The big changes are things like you would expect, from a professional industry, that there's a refund policy, that the director of training is at a certain level, that the director of training is overseeing the coaches, etc. So that there's refund policies, that there's ethics policies, that there's diversity inclusion policies, that people are aware of what they're enrolling in. So everything that you've experienced from a professional point of view is what is actually being introduced into the industry on a global scale. So for those of you who are familiar with the big shakeout that happened in the training industry here in Australia, where the government got rid of or deregistered a number of RTOs, shonky RTOs, who they might have been doing forklift training, but the people that got the certificate never ever got in a forklift, this kind of really dodgy kind of behavior. Our industry, from a training point of view, went through a massive big shake-up. A lot of organisations were deregistered. I don't know if that's going to happen in the coaching industry, but what I do know is that these changes where coach training providers have to be a lot more professional and they're now being monitored is a really good thing. So what it means is that from our point of view, no changes really. What it means is a lot of paperwork. Someone could coach me on that. Actually, this weekend, I'm planning to make all of our submissions. So I've been working on it for nearly 3 months now since the changes were announced. The changes were announced back in November, and I started working on it then. So we will be accredited as a provider as soon as they accredit us, but we'll have done all the paperwork by this weekend. Woohoo! All going well. A few more vodka cruises and a few more blocks of chocolate should get me across the line. So it is really important. I know. Some of you will be up late and probably be texting me as well at the time. So it's really super important. This is a really big advancement of not only our core competencies as professionals, but as coach training providers. It's a big, big change to who and how people are providing coach training in not just in Australia, but globally. So I'm very excited about these changes. I'm excited about them for Open Door personally, but as a coach who's been in the industry for a long, long time, and for many of you, you've been around for a while, it does mean that our industry is becoming a lot more professional. There's standards that not only the coach training providers have to meet, but that as you know, coaches need to meet in order to be able to say that they hold that ICF membership or that they hold coaching education accreditation. So I know I'm over time. Feel free to jump in with any questions that you might have, and I can answer individual questions offline as well. But I hope that with this short overview, you feel energised and excited. I often get asked, people, anyone can just become a coach and they can just, put out their shingle. I don't think so. I think that might have happened in the early days when I first started coaching, but more and more and more, large organisations. I just saw one of our major banks has put a job description out. They're recruiting a head of coaching for a national organisation. So maybe in the past, people might have been able to go, oh, I'm a coach. Not anymore. With all of the organisations that are building coaching culture, like many of you are involved in, with these professional standards, and now the professional standards around the actual coach training providers, I think that those old days of, anyone can call themselves a coach, I haven't seen that for a long time. So we can rest assured from that point of view as well. Alrighty, a lot of coaching, I beg pardon, not coaching, a lot of downloading information for you. If you feel like you need to, as I said, get more specific, I'm more than happy to help you with that as well. Providers will be transitioning. They need to make the transition by the 31st of December this year. As I mentioned, fingers crossed for this weekend, we will submit and we will make this transition quickly and easily. We just went through the whole accreditation process back in December last year. I submitted all the paperwork to continue our accreditation, and then bingo, bango, bongo, here we go with a whole new set. But don't worry, it's all good. Working on it will be done very soon. So announced in November, deadline for submissions and new processes in place by August 2022. Transition, all providers have to transition by the 31st of December. So we'll have done that nice and quickly. So there you go. I offer you to have a think about what does it mean to your practice. So, a quiet reflection on what it means to your practice. What shifts do you need to make or can you make? What key actions you might take away? And you are thinking about potentially the ICF core competencies. Let me have a read of it. How am I going to grow and develop and encompass even more? You're already all doing it. But myself as a professional coach, I'm always thinking about, well, what else do I need to grow and how else can I develop? And there's some really nice questions for us to reflect on. Alrighty. We have Leader as Coach programs coming up. We have the Certificate 4 in Workplace and Business Coaching. And for a number of you, you're ready for the Diploma of Workplace and Business Coaching. So there's courses coming up. Feel free to hit me up, get more information about those as well. Alrighty, okay, massive download of information, much more talking this time around, so forgive me for that. But if you do have any questions, feel free to let me know. And as always, I will say thanks for being here with me today. Happy Friday to you if you are listening to this live. And as always, enjoy your coaching. If you're waiting for your CCU, hang around on the line for just a couple more minutes. Happy Friday, everyone. Enjoy your coaching. I look forward to catching up with you soon.